Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about the sensitizing process, how to take something relatively minuscule and blow it up into a problem of epic proportions that just has to be solved and dealt with. Okay. This also follows the 100th monkey effect, where researchers go out and they teach apes on a random island somewhere to start washing coconuts or bananas, and some of them do it maybe a little bit more, but magically once they got to 100 apes that or chimps, monkeys, I'm not exactly sure which. Once they got to the 100th monkey, um, magically all of the other monkeys, including uncontacted monkeys, all started repeating the same behavior. All right. It's this odd effect that shows the fact that consciousness isn't necessarily contained and it's not necessarily local to the experience. Okay. The information is spreading via, oh shit, what the hell would Einstein call it? Essentially spooky action at a distance, but with flesh and blood. All right. Sensitizing issues and turning relatively small things, and ideally don't use this information to spin up lefty cause campaigns for stupid shit. Ideally, do this for reasonable things that need to change. So, what you do is you start when somebody encounters a situation that it particularly draws an emotional connection. All right, could be outrage, could be fear, unfortunately, could be anything. All right, once you get people into that mindset, okay, one person getting sensitized to a subject that doesn't really do too much. You get 10 people sensitized to a subject or a cause or whatever, it doesn't really do too much. You get 100 people sensitized to a cause or something, anything. I'm drawing blanks currently. And then all of a sudden it starts becoming a movement. And then from 100 you get to 1,000 much quicker and easier, and from 1,000 to 10,000, and it goes on in this giant widening arc. Okay? That's the process of sensitization. All right, you take something and you amplify it. It doesn't really take much to amplify something. You just have to, ideally, you have to get people, you have to evoke not just emotion, but thought and opinion about something. Okay? This is why the left overall has been relatively successful in their shit, because they're mostly in the cities with large concentrations of people. And because you have large concentrations of people, apologies, it's a lot easier to broadcast, all right, verbally and not so verbally, to broadcast certain messages and effectively infect people's brains with largely nonsense and bullshit, derived fuckery. Okay? That's the whole sensitization process. All right? Propaganda fits into it. Most modern messaging means and communication plays into that. All right? Once you hit that first 100 people, all right? Once you get a handful of people talking about a specific subject, all right? Then you can derive just infinite amounts of energy off that. All right, the longer you keep it going, the more outrage, and this is especially prudent with the left, the more outrage you can generate, the more emotion you can tie to it, the more money you can make off of it. This is also another thing that I'm not a fan of when it comes to the left or the right politics, because people use this drip sensitization method in order to essentially put themselves in an infinite career, all right, by stirring up bullshit, all right, and getting more people to sign on to it. Eventually, then comes donor funds and all this other shit, and it takes on a life of its own. And then you end up, well, there are multiple examples, but one of them, I'm not even going to touch it. Not even going to touch it. But whether it's creating a movement or creating a counter movement, such as what happened in Utah, generally, the more events that you have, the more money you can feasibly generate from the causes or the ideas. The downside, though, to sensitization, all right, once you create these flaming, spinning balls of shit, once you create these, it becomes damn near impossible to put them out. All right. When people talk about the possibility of a civil war in the US, it's just like, oh, you're playing with fire even more. Because the reality is, most people have, a lot of people, especially early on, have written off the idea that constant pushing and prodding from the left against the right would create anything really, that it substantiate it turn into nothing. All right. The reality is the longer the divide exists and the more sensitization pressure is put in one direction or the counter, all right, the more and more the messaging turns into essentially, and this was very heavily relied upon to make things like the Mustache Man organization. It gave them the ability to actually do the things that they did. A major part of propaganda is getting the target audience to believe that whoever the target enemy isn't even human. All right. You sensitize people to their own needs, their own wants, their own fears. You play to all of that. And then you pin them as being the consequences of letting group A, B, or C do whatever they want. Eventually, all right, there is going to be, all right, like it's not going to be a traditional, all right, red versus blue, north versus south. That's not going to be that shit. Now, if there's a civil war in the United States, what it's going to be is handfuls of motivated groups from every single splinter group and fracture of every party. It'll be all of those individual groups independently fighting in the middle of the city streets. Like you're gonna be sitting there eating a fucking bagel watching RPGs fly down the fucking road as people are just fighting each other. And honestly, with how desensitized people are to a lot of things, because of course you hammer people with terrible shit all day, you also create the counter effect. All right. It's a matter of balance, really. But with how desensitized people are to things, most people are just going to keep eating the bagel. Like bullets will be flying left and fucking right, rockets, people will be making makeshift tanks out of old vans or something, and it'll just be another day. All right, the general idea, the concept of balkanization in the West, it's very much possible. All right, especially when you take into account that in one of the videos, I talked about recently, the idea that the car companies, being so terrible that they can't even compete on their own soil. All right, they can't compete internationally, but when they can't compete domestically, well, what are these people gonna do? Walk? Well, yeah, the fucking thing's in limp mode. It broke down on the side of the road. Yeah, they're gonna walk. All right, when walking is the only valid means of transportation because overall everything's built to fall the fuck apart in 3 to 5 years. Yeah, yeah, people are gonna walk. Oh, where the hell was I going with this? Um, shit. I don't even know. I don't even know. I will end it here. I know I kind of dropped the ball, but that's okay. I'm a bit tired. All right. I'll see you guys next time. You guys have a good one. www.spadesconsulting.com without the dash if you're interested in personal or business advice. And check out the Substack linked below and in the nav on the website. And if you appreciate the video, like, favorite, sub, share, leave a comment, hype, do all the things, tickle the bell, ring the bell, flick the bell, do all the things to the bell. And we'll see you next time.